A convicted killer who was the subject of a popular podcast downloaded 68 million times might get another chance to try to clear his name. Adnan Syed is in court this week. He is seeking a retrial for the 1999 murder of his ex-girlfriend, Hae Min Lee. Syed is currently serving a life sentence in prison. The podcast Serial raised questions about his conviction in a 2014 series downloaded more than 68 million times, as I said. Syed's defense attorneys are now ready to present new evidence that they hope will exonerate him altogether. Let's bring in our legal panel. Diana Eisman, a former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney, also trial attorney Bob Bianchi, a criminal defense attorney and former head county prosecutor. Diana, it's been 17 years since his conviction. If he gets a new trial, does it stand a chance of being a fair one? I mean, people's memories fade. All kinds of things can happen over that span of time.
It's definitely a disadvantage to both sides to have a trial happen so long after the incident. But in this case, obviously, it's the advantage of the defense because the alternative is that he remains in prison. So with this particular case, the issue is, was there ineffective assistance of counsel, and was the new evidence enough to warrant a new trial? There
is evidence, Bob, or there are suggestions that the prosecution was cutting deals with potential witnesses here, and that may have affected their testimony. If that can be proven or even suggested, is that enough for a new trial?
Hey, John, I'm very concerned about what I'm reading in this particular case. As a former homicide prosecutor myself, and as a prosecutor in general, we all know that, especially with regard to this alibi witness, it is alleged that she was cajoled by the prosecutor not to testify on behalf of the defense, depriving the defense of a very critical piece of evidence, especially, John, in a case where there wasn't solid DNA evidence, and they relied upon somebody who participated in the crime at a minimum at the aftermath as the only witness against this defendant. It's kind of an outrage, and as far as the ethics rules as prosecutors are concerned, you cannot tell witnesses not to testify for the defense. If that turns out to be true, there will be a new trial in this case.
But the old saying, Diana, is that the prisons are full of innocent men, meaning everybody who's in jail says, I didn't do it. How reluctant is a court going to be to take up a case that has been popularized in the media and say, okay, we'll take another shot at this trial?
The final decision needs to be made based on the law and the facts. The media aspect of it, yes, it did give it attention. It probably did bring it back into the court system. But the reality is that the bench officer, that is the judge, that is making the decision in this case, really needs to look at these facts independently of what the media attention is. And that is, there is an alibi witness, a witness that the prosecution knew about and failed to disclose to the defense. That witness was interrupted in the sense that they were not allowed to testify, or they were convinced not to testify. And that's a crime in and of itself, whether the prosecutor does it or the defense attorney does it. It is a crime to convince a witness not to testify for either side in a criminal proceeding. And so that is compelling evidence that should be brought in a new trial, absolutely.
And Bob, you have said the prosecution moved too fast with this case. What do you mean by that?
Listen, when you're doing a homicide investigation, what happens, and I've been at the scene and watched this actually develop, they based their case mainly around motive. That is that they broke up with one another, she started dating somebody else. I can't count how many cases that I've had where there have been jealousy, divorces, things of that nature, and the investigators immediately start moving towards that person, and they start investigating the case based on motive only, and then start putting square pegs in round holes. And I think that happened here. We did not have forensic evidence. We didn't have solid DNA evidence. They relied on somebody who admitted that he committed a crime. They introduced cell phone records that I think are very suspect as to whether or not he was at that location or not that location. They deprived him of an alibi witness. They moved too quickly, and I've been involved in investigations where sometimes with weak evidence like this, you have to wait it out and take your time and go methodically and make sure you don't wind up right where you are. And I'm sure that Diana would agree with this. As prosecutors, we don't just try to win a case in front of a jury. We try to make sure we can win it through the appellate process as well. Bad stuff.
We will let our viewers know what the court decides. Thanks very much, Diana Eisman, Bob Bianchi.
Thanks,
Talk
John.
to you soon.